So today I just wanted to talk about a few lime options. And we spend a lot of money on our food plots and on our hunting equipment and such, and sometimes we skimp because we don't want to go through the process of getting a soil test. And with all the money we spend on the fertilizer and the seed and the time and energy to put the food plots in, getting a soil test is really something that should be done. And they're going to tell you how much lime you need. As far as lime and liming your food plots, it takes time for that lime to change the pH of the soil. And ideally we want the soil in the 6.5, somewhere in there. Could be 7, could be 6, but 6.5 is a good number to shoot for. But it takes time. It takes time for the lime to turn the soil pH or raise the soil pH. With sandy soil it happens quicker than heavier soils like clay. And when you have less organic matter, it happens quicker as well. But that being said, what we have here is we've got a couple different options. The easiest option is if you can get a lime truck out there and them to spread it for you. And that's the way to go if you have that ability. But sometimes with these small food plots or remote locations, we don't have those options. So then you got to look at other options. Now, you still could get the bulk lime if you have some type of way to spread it. And, that can be done. They do have these spreaders, these modern spreaders that are sold today. But a lot of, spreaders like this or these big cone spreaders that can go behind a tractor can't handle, the ag lime. But they can handle this stuff, and this is pelletized lime. And it's called pelletized because it's in little pellets. And this stuff is really nice to work with. It's not nearly as dirty. And some people have said, and again, there's a lot of information out there, and sometimes the information contradicts itself, depending on what source you look at, but people have said that when you use pelletized lime, you can get by with 1/10 the amount that your soil test requires. And I've also seen studies that say, no, you can't. But I will say this, when it comes to the pelletized lime, it's a lot cleaner to work with. You can use a spreader like this, or a bag spreader. And you're not breathing in all the dust. You can also use one on the back of the tractor, the big, 500-pound cone spreaders with this. But the drawback with this is it costs considerably more money. Now, I did have a client a few years back that actually was able to get it in bulk for a lot better price than if you're buying bags at the store of it. Another option that, and I've used this option a lot, is just barn lime. And so this is a 50-pound bag of barn lime, and it's pretty heavy. All right, so this is a physical job, and it's dusty and dirty to spread. So you do want to, either watch the wind, keep the dust from getting all over you and onto your lungs, or wear some type of protection, because you don't want to be breathing in a whole bunch of this stuff. But you can buy this by the bag. I buy it by the pallet and spread it. It's very physical labor, but if you think about it, once you get the pH correct, it's not something you have to be doing constantly. But I've spread tons of lime by doing it this way. But either direction you go, it's going to take time for the pH to change. And even after you've added the recommended lime, I still would focus on planting, at least that first year, crops that can handle a lower pH if your pH is in the, let's say in the low 5s or mid 5s, rather than go to some of these other crops that do much better at a higher pH. And speaking of that, before you start spending all the money on the fertilizer, getting the pH is so much more important. You might not be able to see this, but on here's a chart, and what this chart shows is you got wider areas and you got narrower areas, and when we're right in the 7, you know, 6.5 to 7, 7.5. I wouldn't try to get my fields to 7.5. But what we're getting is a lot more of those nutrients when we put out the nitrogen, when we put out the phosphorus or the potassium. And if you don't have the pH, what ends up happening is the nitrogens and phosphorus and potassiums and micronutrients can get tied up in the soil. So basically, you're spending all this money on fertilizer and giving a small percentage of it to the plants. So focus on the lime first, and if you're on a tighter budget, you know, I would spend the money on lime and not even fertilize before I start fertilizing when my pH is way off. So just some thoughts to consider, but if you want your food plots to be successful, setting them up for success, it all starts with having the right pH.